The hub is the fast way. The hub is where you go, bang, pop a few seals, and go, boom, and you're in. You go, whoa, wow. Only thing about the hub, though, it's if you're still in any of those spaces that consciousness gets into sometimes, where you really wonder how far you can push the natural laws of physics. And you really kind of still want to be bad, just because it's fun sometimes. You get yourself in trouble in those matrices, not because somebody's going to beat up on you, but because co-resonant frequency is what they're built on. It's such a high level that if you have disharmonic frequency and you're throwing disharmonic frequency, it will purge it. And if you have more disharmonic frequency than you have harmonic frequency, it will purge more of you than less of you. And if you have 99% disharmonic frequency, you're going to end up as particle dust going through. It is the first creation levels where your perfected original first form that any of your incarnations here came out of. Now, there's a version that matches the body that you had here. It would be like your perfect baby body, right, where it was in perfected form. Because everything that happens out here gets recorded back in time, right? Anything that gets done here will get an imprint as long as there's any connection left to the living person out here to their hub. Whatever they do will get sent back into the memory banks of the inner worlds and will be a version of it in its most high expression will be created there as if that were the creation point of the thing that happened out here. So time is very mutable when it comes to the hub. This has a lot of potential as far as discreating messes go. Yeah. And I'm hoping that we get to start getting some mechanics on that. And I think we're going to. We may have to run first, though, or fly, right? And then come back and say, aha, that's how we do it. You know? But anyway, we go to the next diagram. I wanted you to see the basic way that natural planetary systems are structured and their relationship to their solar system. This is, by the way, called the Divine Blueprint, the Ruche Cross. And this was a modification of it that was meant. It's called the Mente Interface Shield. It was meant to assist a distortion in the planetary shield so it could run its currents again. It's run its staff currents again. But this is no longer operational, and this is not doing real well right now either. Next one, please. Thank you. No. 8 o'clock. I think everybody will be asleep by then. I don't know. I think I'll be asleep on my feet by then anyway. What time is it? I am sorry this happens sometimes, but you waited as long as you did, so I'm just going to pretend. I did. I said it again. I said I'm sorry. Oh. I feel bad keeping you up because I know it's rough. I mean, right now I have a raging backache and all that. But anyway, back to this. Yes. Where are we now? Where are you now? There we go. The hidden environmental anomaly responsible for DNA mutation on Earth and a whole bunch of other messes. All right. This is the anomaly. This was our graduation into getting plugged in to the beast a very long time ago. It didn't all happen at once. It was done in increments during very large intergalactic, interdimensional dramas that took place at various periods of time. Earth became actively hugely involved 5.5 million years ago during something called the Electric Wars period, where part of the planet fell what was called phantom, which is partial black hole status. All right? It's been a struggle ever since 5.5 million years ago to try to keep Earth from falling into full black hole status because there's been certain groups that really, really wanted to pull it down. And you know what? I think when it all comes out in the wash, which is probably going to be very soon, I think they won. If this were a game, which it really is but really isn't, we've done our best here, and it doesn't look real promising. It looks like we're going to take whatever little bits of grids called safe zones that we can and go back to the hub and say, okay, you win. We love you. Do what you want to do. Because this setup here, I'm not going to go, it would take me probably 4 hours to go back in my memory banks and find how, there was a time when I could explain every bit of this perfectly without reading the little print, right? That was when I was on that file. We're like 20 files ahead of that at this point. That's put back in a box somewhere. So this information, though, is going. These couple of sheets you're going to see here are going, they're going to be finished typeset, but they are going in the K23 manual. Why? Because these are the hidden environmental anomalies that are responsible for what's making us sick. If K23 is a healing program, well then, focus on healing. What do you need to heal? Most people don't even know these things are abnormal. They don't know what is happening. And I'll show you what I mean by these things being abnormal. It's really funny, because if you put something in front of somebody and call it something else, it's the best way of hiding something. And that's exactly what has been done on this planet. Now, right now, instead of having our nice flat solar plane, what we have is this mess. We've got Pluto's orbit flying out there somewhere halfway between our solar plane and the Nibiruan plane, which goes way up out into what they call the deep galactic night, according to Nibiruans. Right. It goes up into density, too, and then cycles back down. These are all about creating artificial vortices through electromagnetic force and pull and torque. And you can literally move planets by doing this. You can also explode planets. You can also wipe out whole solar systems like this. And that has been done. Not here yet, but they're working on it. This has something to do with the technology that was used way back in the history banks that I don't even want to access. But somewhere, yeah, it was after the fall. Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Don't want to know. Okay, I just realized there was more history that has to do with our galaxy that was actually after the fall from Terra, which was 550 million years ago. Yeah, 550? Yeah, 550 million years ago, yeah. Anyway, after that time, there was a bunch of things that ended up with what is basically a black hole at the center of our Milky Way galaxy. Right? That black hole didn't get there by accident. It got there because these type of experiments were being tried. They call them, in a gentle, loving way, dimensional blend experiments. Yeah, right? Call them wormholes. Yeah, call them things that suck the life force out of natural living matrices and eventually make them fall and implode. Yeah, yeah, dimensional blend experiment. So we have these sets of spirals of unnatural electromagnetic energy. They're very, very powerful, but they're being run in frequencies that our science hasn't even identified yet. Right now, our science is playing with the D2 spectra. They're getting a little bit of the D1 spectra and a little bit of the D3 spectra as identifiable waveforms. This is way up off the gamma ray charts and way down below the infrareds and all of that. There are light spectras that right now, in fact, the speed of light, that great constant, isn't constant at all. Right now it's, I think, running at 1/3 of what its natural actually is because of the mutations in this system. And not just on this planet, in the solar system and going out into the Milky Way. Not all systems have this problem, but this one sure does. What this comes down to on our personal level is this, and I'll show you this bigger in a minute. See this tilted thing over here? Right in there, there's a planet. This is natural solar north. This would be the planet. If it's Merkaba, we're sitting naturally in its solar plane. This is what happens when planets have electromagnetic problems and their Merkabas that break their staff connection or are forced out of their natural staff connection. It was forced in the case of our planet here. It was forced through the dynamics that are involved with these spiraling beams of energy that have been spiraling through at certain levels of activation for many thousands of years now. They are being brought into full activation now, and that's why we're going to get evac training, because there's a certain setup that's connected to this and connected to our planet that you'll see that at 6 o'clock in the morning there's going to be an activation from the Budhara on, and we should be all right with it. They haven't said that we're in any danger now. They've opened part of the Cantaria network in order to absorb and buffer some of this. But they did say solar storms may be the first indication. And I get a feeling there may be something bigger. I don't know. But this one's big, and I'll show you why it's big. Can we have the next one, please, Ann? Thank you. Excuse me. Yeah, I know. Talk about, there's one of those microchip ones, right? Okay. Well, let's start over on this side first. Oh, my back. Excuse me a minute. Got to stretch. Ow. Oh, you need a potty break? How are you guys doing? Do you need a quick bathroom break? Because we have till 8 in the morning, and then they kick us out of the room. So, yeah. All right. Before we go into this, you want to? All right. There seems. What am I supposed to do? Let these guys sit here with their legs crossed, bouncing up and down? Let's call a 5-minute break, okay? I'm sorry, but please be patient with us. You'd want it if you had to go, okay? 5 minutes. Okay. Now, there's going to be a point, just because we'll be healed next Tuesday if I spend this much time on autographs, when we get through this bit and to the piece of the announcement number 3 that I do know, and see if the rest of the piece of it falls through that I don't know yet, which it might. It tends to happen. Sometimes they wait until we're live before they'll, just reveal the whole thing. But what is going to be revealed has to do with these things. That's why I'm spending time on this, and that's why I figured if people are going to get really, really tired where like absorption levels go down, the first stuff that's most important is to know why it's important to learn any of the other stuff. Right? And that's this stuff. Now, we were talking about the planet and the magnetic fields. We saw the other diagrams that showed the kind of like pancake of our solar system and some really, really strange-looking lines that represented strange stretched-out Seer pillars, actually, electromagnetic pillars that are being generated artificially by different places, from apparatus, black hole machines, similar to the beast, that are part of the beast mechanism. These are all over the place. You'll find, I didn't go through the names of places, but there are several of the places that hold this beast black hole machine mess in motion in our system, in our galaxy, in our universe, and in our solar system and on our planet. You'll find names like Nibiru, Wormwood, which used to be a piece of Maldak, but Maldak blew up, and now it's called the asteroid belt. That used to be Stargate 5. You'll find names like Cryon, which is a moon of one of the Wisa planets that is in a black hole system that is used to anchor some of the magnetics. You'll hear names like Tiamat, and you'll find out in this world false history that tries to make Tiamat look like this was like Earth is a piece of Tiamat that fell off, when it's actually the other way around. Tiamat was actually a piece that was brought from here and dragged into an orbit in density 2 in order to help anchor this mess of the beast. The beast stretches through the density voids that are naturally supposed to separate density systems. There's only supposed to be the organic systems that are able to go up and down through them. But something called the Metatronic code was the closest thing. Is the second creation code. It's the code for artificial life. And it can create a facsimile of original creation. It can create Merkaba field vortice systems, but they're same spin spiral sets. It can create energy vampiring systems and create false free energy power by sucking it off living things. So the other diagram, I didn't get heavily into where those funny things where you saw the plane, the solar plane, and the planets and the sun in the middle, and then these really weird things coming down at specific angles. And on top of those things, there were balls. Those balls were different planets or moons that were literally forced out of their natural orbits. They were turned into non-ascension planets so they could be used. Literally like, what do I compare it to? Like spikes. If you were going to say spike out, they spike out grids, where if you want to run a line of energy between point A and point B, you put an anchoring rod that will hold the energy here, and then you put another one here. And it's literally about getting energy to arc in artificial ways that aren't natural. And where our scientists actually do it on a mini level, where they're playing with atoms and things like that. They're playing with particle accelerators. They're playing with subatomic units. They're playing with quarks and those kind of things. They have no idea what they're doing with those quarks. Let's combine this and this and see what happens. Does it go bang? Does it make energy? Does it, They're studying things without any clue as to what they might be creating by combining certain things. Now, the ones who have created these things, and they are using planets and solar systems just like we use the micro communities. To them, some of them, they are micro communities. Just like we would play with atoms, they play with solar systems. But, and I have a feeling, just like we're sitting here saying, yo, wait a minute. We're not just like this atom you can just cut in half and stick magnetic fields on and tear it apart this way and stick it over to that and see what comes out. Hello, we have rights. We have free will. We're thinking beings. I wonder if our atoms think that too and we don't hear them, in our science labs. But anyway, all of that, there's a whole bunch of things. You'd be amazed at some of the names that pop up. I was amazed. I mean, we've got Chiron, we've got Clarion. It's really funny because all these guys are speaking these days. You got the voice of Clarion, the Clarion call. You've got the Cryon. You've got all of these guys. Who are these guys? Where'd they get their names? The one thing we did on the Beast Machine, where they showed the building of it and the different phases in our universe that were put in, that's not in this book. That's too deep into it for it. I think it's in Dance for Freedom, though, the Dance for Freedom program, which is another one of those manuals but nobody back-ordered it because we hadn't had it on the product list. It's been waiting like 3 years to come out, but it's just about ready, too. That's very close. That has more of the in-depth material on the Beast Machine, and it shows the structure of it. And you'll see really wild names like planets and things in black hole systems. One is called, I believe, Apollyon. You'll see a lot of Greek gods pop up. They happen to be named after these planets, which are fallen black hole system planets. What our science is just starting to play with the idea is that something actually can fall in a black hole and survive. Because before it was thought that it would be annihilated because of the forces there. But there are conditions in which something can go into a black hole, and it's called harness fields. If there are particular types of electromagnetic barriers around a matter form that will protect it from the variance of everything from pressure to frequency that it's going to experience in passing through a wormhole or black hole, it can survive. There is a mutative factor, however, and the Metatronic code is a code that allows for black hole passage. Pretty much. A few bits get left behind and twisted a little bit out of their ordinary pattern, but it gets you there. That's how they look at it anyway. So the New Age movement is a riot because when I first got in body, because I am a walk-in like most indigos are, but I was conscious, and I walked in consciously, and the one who was walking out, who was part of my soul matrix, who agreed to this before birth, she and I agreed to walk to the walk in and out, and came in, and I still had this, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be an ambassador down here. Oh great, we're going to look up several people because we know who they are, and they're supposed to be on our team. Yeah, right. Come September of 2000, they decide, no, we're not. Yeah, go to hell. We're not going to listen to you. We're going to stomp on you. So all of a sudden, I find myself down here thinking, okay, well, let's see. We have all these really wonderful books. We'd collected books. The walkout part collected books before. We had everything from the Seth material to the Cryon material to, just about everything. And we weren't into any one thing. It was just like seeing what everybody had to say. And we always felt like such a part of the New Age movement. It was heartbreaking when we found out what was actually going on. Because we had the veils down too. Light, love, and clueless, we called it. Yes, I came in that way. Boy, was it a rude awakening. Now we go for light, love, and awareness. Because what we didn't know was a lot of these things that are channeling are actually part of the plan that was set back in Atlantis to finish things off here during this stellar activation cycle when the stargates opened again. Because we ended up at a stalemate draw in 22,326 BC when the Guardian guys got the gates closed and stopped the stellar activation cycle because this stuff was going to be finished thin. And they knew the next time it came around, and they come around every 25,556 years, they knew the final conflict drama was going to take place then. That's what we're in the middle of. The Bible, in its own little strange way, tried to predict that in Revelations, or what was left of Revelations. So we're in the middle of this. And this has been a long time, this setup. We look at our planet. There's certain things we think are normal. They're just facts of nature, like the precession of the equinoxes, like the fact that we have an ecliptic, where there's a difference between the equatorial plane of the planet and that of the sun. That's not normal. Now, science calls it part of nature. put something there and call it something else, and it appears perfectly natural. If you don't know the underlying natural structure, that there is a natural structure that the universe is created on and is supposed to be functioning by, and if it's to remain healthy, it needs to function by. If you don't know that, anything can appear natural. You can have 6 heads, 4 arms, in a tree sticking out of your eyeball, and it would look natural if you didn't know that you were supposed to look different. You know? It's all relative. So we look at things like science goes up and analyzes all this stuff. Now, wow, we can get off planet and go look at solar systems and things. Oh, great. And we see the Earth is out there, and we see the Earth is tilted, and they can calculate exactly what tilt the difference is between the north axis of the planet and the north axis of the sun. And they find that there's a 23.5 degree basic tilt in the polar axis, where the sun axis would be this way, and ours is 23.5 degrees off from that. They also find some other very strange things, like there's a wobble that happens with the planet, and I think it's every about 26,000 years, that creates the precession of the equinoxes, which has to do with the planet actually facing and tilting the sun at different angles at different times. It all is built on the sextant clock, which is a mutation. Now, we're getting into what this is. We look at things that we think are normal. Magnetic fields. That's the basic structure. Now, the magnetic fields are much more complex than that, and they actually form puddles and pools all over the place. But the basic structure of magnetic fields on the planet follow this configuration. And you can see that configuration when you put a magnet with metal particles, and you can watch them take that shape as they go around the magnet. The planetary magnetic fields are similar to that, though much more complex. And supposedly, that's a fact of nature. The fact is, it's not. Our literal magnetosphere is a mutation. It is a harness. It is a magnetic harness. Now, science tells us lovely things. It's a good thing we have our magnetic field, because if not, we'd get blown away totally by the solar wind. We'd be fried. The planet wouldn't be inhabitable. La-di-da-di-da. Yeah, right. If it was sitting up properly in its solar plane, it would have no problem. Yes, it would have fire on the outside, and it would have very nice living conditions beneath that light radiant field, beneath its light body. It would be fine. Science doesn't know that stuff here. Okay? Now, these magnetic fields are an anomaly of guess what? Does it remind you of anything that you saw in the diagram before? Remember the yin flow? Except the yin went in this way like a butterfly, right? This we call the poison apple. It means the rod is shut down. So it's not circulating energy out into the solar planes as it's naturally supposed to. There's not the natural, just like you would have the natural spiraling currents going this way, making their arcs to the sun and to the other planets from the top and the bottom, and you would have the natural currents coming into and out of the rod as the planet spins on its axis and that kind of thing. That is not happening because it's in an electromagnetic harness. That harness is a quarantine field. That harness is the beginning of a quarantine field that has been meticulously actually constructed over many, many thousands of years in order to use this planet, because it happens to be the location of Universal Stargate 3, and our sun happens to be Universal Stargate 4 in the whole universal grid. All right. Now, those two elements being close together as they are very, very useful if you want to take out a universe and align planets in a way that you can get them to electromagnetically suck each other in and then direct them down into a black hole fall. And that's why Earth has always been a hot spot, because it holds a stargate and it's next to another gate that's even bigger, that if you look at stargates, if this were the universal Cathara grid, Earth would hold a natural 3 position. Natural 3 should be over here. These are reversed. How do we do that? Actually, I wonder if we're supposed to. Yeah. I know why they did that. That was a little twist they threw in at the end there. We're showing the mutated one here, right? Normally, you would have 3, 6, 9 going up the right side, and in your body, you have 3, 6, 9. That's your Cathara centers running up the right side of your body. You have 4, 7, 10 would be the natural structure going up on the natural Cathara grid. It was on the other ones, but this is showing the mutation of it. Now, anyway, if this were the galactic one, Earth would hold the 3 position, and the Sun would hold the 4 position, and in between there would be the density lock, and that would be considered the 3.5 position. It would imply that there was a lock somewhere in there, a bend in space-time, somewhere between Earth and the Sun that allowed you to pass through into the next density out. Okay? So this was an ascension system. And some systems aren't. Some systems are actually the product of a fall someplace else, and they're just kind of like the dust that got left behind, where some things got sucked into a black hole system, but it didn't take all of the matter in the system, and eventually it will just burn itself out and go back to natural space dust here, or Partakai dust here. And then it still has the ability to rejuvenate. It's not gone antichristic black hole fall. So there are some systems that are not ascension systems because they actually are just fallen pieces from something else. They will eventually, they can accrete back into the main shield of what they fell from. So there is the potential for bioregenesis if it's a body of a person, or a body of a race, or a body of a planet, or a body of a galaxy, or even a universe, within certain tolerance levels. If a certain amount of the template is damaged, there is a point of no return where it will go. The only way to get back to ascend is as space dust. And that's what a lot of the black hole systems have found themselves in. Black holes do eventually implode. Once you go in, it distorts your natural template to the degree that you can't come back out and live in a natural system. So what we're dealing with is an attempt to use the planets in our system to drag down the universal Cathara grid and its gate structures and all the universes with it. Why? Simply because universes are food for black hole systems. Black hole systems need to feed their core seed atom at the center of their core suns, around which all their other universes and little galaxies and stuff revolve around. Or it burns out, which means it'll hit its critical level of having given up energy quantum, and then it will start to spew and literally spin off the rest of whatever energy it has at its core until it implodes. And then everything goes back to space dust. And even black holes will return to source, because nothing can leave source. It's all taking place within the body of source. So eventually, even if they're going to be mad at source forever and ever and blame source forever and ever for setting up these stupid rules of Christic mechanics that make things like, if you're really, really bad to the point where you're hurting everything all around you, something's going to happen and you're going to find yourself in a black hole and you're going to go back as space dust, and if that's not fair, too bad. Well, even these guys go home. The thing is, they don't go home with any memory banks or any persona. The structure of the identity that they originally came in as is not there anymore. It's in pieces. But every piece will always carry a small fractal of its original core. And the core is the imprint that went into the hub. The hub is what sent the first manifestation of a form out. And there will always be the perfect imprint before a fall, before a damage. There's always actually the perfect imprint for health in there, in the hub. But the hubs are not always accessible. On this planet, it's been very difficult to bring in any hub, because you open hub gates and you're bringing in such high frequency that if the planetary grids aren't stable and functioning somewhat, it'll blow it up, because the grids are so strong in the hub. So the hubs have been in quarantine. We've been in quarantine from the hubs for a very long time because of the damage to this planet, because to open the hubs was just too dangerous. They would take us, if people wanted to get back and take the ascension path through the hub as opposed to the long way up, they would get them out to Terra in density 2 first, because Terra had more grid tolerance and wasn't as damaged, and it was a larger planetary or star body that could handle more of the frequency. But at this point, they're opening the hubs here. That means there's nothing else to do. The chance of that causing the place to implode is nothing compared to what is on the agenda from whatever's happening here. That's why we're being given the unspoken teachings. That's why I don't think, have they? No. They said they've never been given in this density 1 system, in this particular solar system, ever before, because they've never opened the hubs directly in. They've opened interface gate systems. That's different. You can't directly get the imprint for the healing from the interface gate systems. You have to go through the interface gate systems, kind of work yourself through some of your miasmic mess until you can get to the point where you can tolerate the frequency of the hub. So they're doing some kind of mechanics level that will allow us to be able to plug back into the hub to help clear our systems, but in a way that will be able to keep our form integrity. Because if not, we're going to have our staffs reversed, our central vertical column, because the planet's staff is reversing. And that's not a good thing. I'm really wondering, if the planet's staff is reversing, how long is it before the planetary body does something weird, right? What's it going to look like? The thing is driving me crazy. You know, I mean, he thought, I was like, oh, that was a big disappointment. Well, shucks. Well, actually, it wasn't. It was great. It didn't go badly, so we didn't see any rock and roll and fly in spaceships or anything, right? But after a while, it's like, come on, get on with it. Something show already, you know. We may be getting that wish. I don't know. But what is going on right now has to do with, first of all, this has been the state of our Merkaba, for our planetary Merkaba, for quite a while. Again, I'm just showing the D3 level, and inside of that there would be the D2 level. It's the same graph from before, but I added something to this. I finally have been able to plug in the image of the mutated Cathara and the arc systems and the poison apple into the natural structures I knew were there. I knew these things fit, but I never had the proportions right. Like, you know, I know that's the mutation, and that's how it's supposed to look, which means you should be able to put the two together and see where the variation was made. But we just never had time to do the graphs, but I knew it was there. Finally, they showed me how this works. This interesting little thingy in here is called the Tree of Artificial Life. It's a 10-point Cathara grid. Yeah. And actually, I hear they're planning on getting an 11th point up at the top. Oh, surprise me once you plug it into the Wiesdeck black hole system, sure. And that's after they rip it down this way and the bottom becomes the top. That's the plan on their side. Now, you couldn't do this to a planet unless you had it really messed up in the first place, which it is, as far as the electromagnetic fields go, where this Merkaba field should be sitting up just like the solar one on the same plane. It's not. This part of it's tilted 23.5 degrees off this way, and there's another part that's in a counter tilt of 11.5 degrees. It actually fluctuates back and forth. So you've got a wobble that creates the larger precession of the equinoxes that is not natural, is not normal. It appears in nature because it is evidence of the mutation that we speak about. But we also have a little wobble within the wobble. And because of the two wobbles, we got littler wobbles within the wobbles within the wobble. So the planet's actually like wobbling on its axis as it goes around. This is not normal. All right? Planets are supposed to spin, not wobble. Now imagine what it does to your DNA. You know, my DNA is wobbling all over the place and my base codes can't plug in right. You know? That's basically what it's doing, too. Well, this would be in the natural Merkaba. What I didn't do, because there would have been too many lines and you wouldn't have been able to see anything again on the drawing, which we often have the problem of, this I still kept the shape of the natural size of the spirals that would be our D3 Merkaba. I remember from the outside of the natural shield that normally would be on this plane, this is the shield now that runs there. They call this the ecliptic, as if it's a natural part of natural phenomena, just like the four seasons and the precession of the equinoxes. All natural phenomena, right? No. What we should be having is, this should be our natural north-south axis. This should be the solar plane. The ecliptic plane should be the natural equatorial plane. And we've got this instead because of the tilt. That's the tilt that gives us the seasons. And all of these things that appear to be just facts of nature are facts of the nature of the mutation. And when you realize this, and you realize what's been going on here, it becomes pretty darn evident that either the universe is really wacky and stuff like this can just spontaneously make itself happen, or somebody's aware of us here that we don't know about. And something's going on here that we don't remember. And that's what it is. Because the same thing that is causing these unnatural phenomena of the poison apple, oddly shaped magnetic fields, which are a harness net, that are tilting the Merkaba spirals, that are actually compacting the Cathara grid, the natural Cathara grid would be out this far, right? Like the dimensions, remember, are supposed to be a square, and they divide the square in half and then take that length to find the bottom and the top points, that kind of thing. The proportions of this are completely different. It's compacted. It's squashed this way and this way. This diagram down here, we're finally able to plug these in. I don't know if you can see that. Could you, Diana, just lift it up so they can see down in this corner, please? Feel like I'm helping a truck back up. All right. Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Over in this corner. I love this one. Here, somewhere back in here, there's a very light drawing of what it would be the natural proportions of our natural Cathara grid, right? You would have your natural spheres that went with that. Now, there's also, here at 45-degree angle, would be the natural lotus arcs that we saw. And remember, they're the things that phase up, the arcs of energy that phase up. They move the cells, the light spheres, up so they spark, and they open the central vertical column so energy can come in and feed the seed atom every once in a while. It's all in a cycle. It's a natural cycle that's controlled by actually the first quantum that was released in the first particle will actually control the rest of how it manifests and what quantums are involved and what the time scale is that particular manifestation will be in. They're back here somewhere. You can see them faint. I put them faint just so you'd see the difference in what's happening now. Now, what this mutation has done, and it's because of literally the force of a stronger force. We're dealing with a density 1 system here. When you deal with currents from density 2, they are stronger. They are higher frequency currents compared to the density 1 currents. They have the ability to override the natural currents in density 1, but they're usually kept separate or blended under natural crystalline principles, so you never have to worry about that. But if somebody takes density 2 currents and reverses them, reverses their spin, plays with their content to where they create artificial things like the electron, which is something we think is natural because it's all over the place here. It's the foundation of our matter systems. It's missing a few components. It would be something different. You can still call it an electron. It would still be in the same place, but it would do different things. It would be alive as compared to a regurgitator of stolen energy, because that's what electrons do right now, because they don't have their natural connection to the life force fields. They can be healed as well. Okay? They started out as ectrons up in density 3, but the arcs are very interesting because the arcs have actually been used. Now remember, there's Merkaba fields on here too, right? Natural Merkaba fields. They would actually come out, if you trace the size of this grid, you would see that the Merkaba fields, first of all, the flat part, the bottom of whichever spiral it is, this up on top is the bottom of the bottom spiral, right? You notice that crosses through at the 11 point on the natural Cathara grid, and the top spiral comes down and crosses through at the 2 on the natural Cathara grid. That would be the natural, gives you the natural proportions, and if it weren't for photocopiers distorting all sorts of things, including spheres, turning them into ellipses, this would be an equilateral triangle, except do it twice on the photocopier and it's something different. Okay? But it's meant to be. So it's a symbolic representative of an equilateral triangle. So you can trace where it would be, even though if I put it on this diagram, you wouldn't be able to see the stuff I'm trying to show you in the center here. All right? But the natural Merkaba would come out, it's naturally, the Merkaba spiral ends come out at 60 degrees, right? The lotus arcs naturally come out at 45 degrees. There's this interesting exchange that takes place where when under certain points in the cycle, of the natural cycles of Merkabas, the arcs normally do their phase thing and they spark and they make current, and then the current spirals down and it feeds the rest of the system, that kind of stuff. But every once in a while, the Merkaba actually goes into a hyperdimensional state, even on its own, just in order to reset and recharge all of its monadic core, actually. Not just the seed atom, but the monadic core. It resets itself every once in a while. Once it's expended most of its quantum, before it hits a critical quantum where it would become a problem, it just goes into a hyperdimensional state, which means it goes into the void and activates as a vehicle, and that allows it to pull in more frequency to go through the Hitharo-Hithalon process, but they call it the Atharo-Alon process, And there's also something called the starburst process, which is the resetting of the monadic spirals, or the monad flames, that are these little clusters of energy that are located in different... they're located, the center of them is at the azure. In any Cathar grid, it implies there is a monadic cluster behind that, and there is a seed atom that manifests through that. But the monads are actually large. They're actually what phase? When these arcs come up here, there's a light cell here, and a light cell here, and a light cell here in the hub, and the arcs interface with that, and they cause those in the hub to come together and spark. And that spark opens seals between the natural hubs in here and sparks more primordial currents in. And the primordial currents feed the different light cells that are out here in the outer manifestation that allows them to spark and produce more currents. So it's a constant give and take. And currents that are expended here would then pass through back into the hub, and they would go on their cycle back up to source as backflow, and then source would send backflow return. It's an energy system that was created with the Criss code from the first creation point, and it's just been in motion ever since. It doesn't stop. Once Partakai phasing was set in motion, it doesn't stop. And there's built-in things. One of the built-in things, part of the immune system of the God body, you could say, is the process of starburst. If there's so much damage that's done to a set of shields or a set of spheres that it is in jeopardy of damaging the entire electromagnetic balances in the body structure. If an Eka is in jeopardy, there will be a situation of starburst. Actually, I think it starts with Hitharo. And if Hitharo doesn't clear the problem, now Hitharo is a reset of the Rushite spirals. The Rushite spirals are the spirals of energy that come down vertically through the central vertical column from the light cells up in the level above. Once they're reset, usually that's enough to clear the problem. We went through Hitharo in May of 2003. Well, it temporarily cleared the problem, and then they added more to the problem. The next phase in the planetaries, the planet or any system's natural healing immunity structure is a process called starburst, where if it can't reset the outer creation, and that's still going to rip things apart and fall to the point where it might jeopardize the inner creation will reset, and it will reset the entire monad. Because right now we're in a system that actually the monad connection is reversing, the seed atom is reversing, the staff is reversing. Once it reverses, it's running current, a dimensional spectrum current that is a mutation of the natural life field, a unified field around it, which means it will repel the natural field, and it will be drawn into a black hole system. And it's being pointed, directed, it's not going to fall randomly. So anyway, there is supposed to be a natural opening and closing of the gates between the hub systems and of the inner creation and the outer manifest creation worlds. And when a system gets so damaged that if you open the gates, the hub frequencies just blow it back to Partakai dust immediately, there's a lot of other opportunities to try other things besides that before. That is the, oh no, you're kidding me. Uh-oh. I think I just stumbled on the rest of the announcement. Didn't I? Pardon my dumbness. What did I just say? I just said that. I said enough that I should have figured something out, didn't I? I think. I'll ask them. I think that's where they're going. My goodness. That if you open a hub in a system that's as damaged as this, it sends it back to dust. Right. And then a few sentences later said, and they're opening the hub to da-da-da-da-da. Uh-oh. Anyway, we'll put that in file 13 and show a little bit further, but I have a feeling this may have something to do with something. I think they're... Yeah, okay. This has to do with the Hathor group. I think they're going to do a quarantine matrix in the black hole for part of it, and I think they're going to let the hub currents run through the Budhara black hole. Oh, no wonder the Buds are upset with us. Oh, ooh. Is that what you're doing? Yeah. Part of it, okay? There's a part of it. It's about time. You just saying you think your history and your matrix is long? You should have seen ours with them. Right? Okay. Anyway, we'll get back to that point. What I do want to point out here, and this is, finally, it's clear enough in diagrams with enough explanation that if anybody says, well, what do I need Cathara healing for? I say, well, Reiki's not going to fix this for you. It might help with the outer levels of stuff once you balance this out, but you're not going to get that 12-strand activation you're really, really hoping for. And I don't care who ordains you. You're not going to get 48 strands. You're not going to get 5 strands activated while you have this problem. And you will have this problem while you live on this planet, unless you do something directly with your biofields. That's why K23 is useful. It begins the process. Is it an easy process? No. It's not an easy process. These magnetic fields, the way they are on the planet, are manifested in our bodies. That's why people are going dyslexic, as they're trying to get back to normal, right? Right, left, I don't know what's right and left, right? Yeah, at least we're not going forward and backward. We won't get anywhere. But part of the conditions that are emerging right now, like dyslexia and dyspraxia and those kind of things, where there's like reversals of letters and numbers and this kind of thing, is because we're living in a reverse system. Our DNA is starting to activate, and it's starting to try to pull us back in the normal frame until it gets overridden by the frequencies of the dominant mutation. So people's brainwaves get caught in the process, where one reads backwards and one reads forwards, and then the one sitting in the middle kind of goes, I don't know what that says. You know? So, anyway, this is a good reason for Cathara healing to start it. It's a good reason to tell somebody. What is really nice about this is finally we have it on paper enough, where I knew we had it, but I'd never had any graphs enough, clear enough, to put it all in one place real quick, where you could say, this shape is called the daisy of death. It is the daisy of artificial life. It is the product of the mutation that creates the artificial tree of life with 10 Cathara centers, part of which are reversed. The bottom half are reversed. 6, 7 is actually split. See these? Half 6, half 7 on each side to create an artificial 13 current. That's called the blue sword of Archangel Michael current. Right, yeah, him too. It's really sad. It's like heartbreaking. It can make one really, first you get really bummed, and then you get just ticked off. It's like, God, isn't there an angel out there somewhere I could like that's actually what they say they are? You know, you got to look in the mirror. Say, somewhere in there's an angel that forgot. Maybe I can remember now. Because all these people on this planet that walk around in a hominid human form, they started with the gift of being angels. We were angelic humans commissioned here to take care of the planetary grids. All of this stuff, we knew this stuff. We were supposed to know this stuff. We were commissioned to be guardians of the stargates. Oh, dear. Well, we tried. The indigo races, the Azurite descent races, were here kind of like the higher councils, not to tell the humans what to do, but to assist them. They held larger templates. Humans could run 12 strands of DNA, which means they could run 12 dimensions of frequency, which means they could run the full set of 12 stargates in this system. But the indigo races carried anywhere from 24 to 48 strand capacity, which meant in the event that there was a necessity to run frequencies from the Eka or higher, they would be able to do that. And they could override, and they could activate several gate systems at once, that kind of stuff. They could do galactic gates as well as planetary. Humans were originally really the galactic guardians in these densities. And the Azurites had been appointed to help them out when it started to get messy, and that was way before we were even down here on Earth. There were angelic wars for the fall of Metatron, I think, what was that? That was after the fall of Lyra and before the fall of Gaia, right? So this has been a long progression of fall. The fall of Lyra was 250 billion years ago, to give you a time frame in Earth time. I think it was 150 million years ago. No, 5.5 million. 150 million? 150 billion years ago, I think, maybe in the fall of Metatron. That's in the Dance for Freedom stuff. But anyway, there's been a progression of fall in this system. Finally, we are here. We are the remnant of what's left of the indigo and angelic human races. And some of us now actually didn't start out human, but we somehow inherited a human form, either through bioregenesis, gifts that were given as experiments to try to help, because there were a lot of those being run, particularly in the Atlantean times, and in a couple of seedings, they're still run all over the place in the universal systems. If a race's template is going to crash, the Guardians will always attempt to find a way to host them into a matrix that's similar enough, give them it's kind of like splicing your shield and DNA template, because it's crumbling to pieces, into one that's similar enough where it can hold the rest of yours together, so you can keep your form, keep your memory banks, keep your individuality, but add new potential to what form you're going to develop. So there was a lot of those things that were done. So there are humans of all kinds now. Most humans aren't humans on the planet. If you start seeing like lizard faces inside people's faces, or you start seeing all sorts of interesting, some hominid looking, some hairy looking, like, fuzzy mammal types. There's all sorts of beings in human masks right now on Earth. And it doesn't matter. We all started in the same place. What matters is what agenda we're choosing. And even if, in our lack of memory here, we discovered the worst of the worst, oh my God, I am going to fall because I don't have enough left to hold a host, you can do it with dignity. And so can the people out there that don't want to hear about any of this stuff. They can hear about Christian principle. They can hear about basic crystal body. They might not want to hear about the poison apple. But if you tell them about the poison apple, it might just get their attention. Because it's provable. And if we can show how, that's how it looks, isn't it? Want to see how it's supposed to look? When people are teaching out there in the New Age movement to people who just really want to find their spirituality and that kind of stuff, they're teaching all sorts of interesting paradigms, healing modalities, creation myths. When they're teaching you to run your Merkaba in the way that goes with this shape, which means you would run two different Merkabas that are same spin spiral sets, one at 34 clockwise, 34 counterclockwise, which is electrical. If it's counterclockwise, it's supposed to be magnetic in the particum system. It's also supposed to be on the bottom. And it's not supposed to be on bottom and top. And it's not supposed to be phase locked to itself where it spins to form a vortice around itself that is an unnatural vortice. It's not supposed to be forced into connection to a 21 opposite spin, forced into itself Merkaba structure. Unless, of course, you want to create enough vortice torque and a tube torus inside that you can override the natural structure of the density Merkabas up above it. That's what's been being done here. It's black hole technology. It's a pretty good demonstration of it, actually. They deserve a medal for this one. As far as it's horrific, but it's brilliant what was done here. I mean, the Metatronic code is brilliant, but not that brilliant. And how brilliant can anything be, no matter how technical and how almost close to perfection it got, if it's robbing the life out of other things? It's not worth building. It's not worth doing. It's not a choice worth having. Angelic humans have a difference in consciousness than those who do things like this. There is a certain set of understandings, inner laws, not because somebody said you had to do this or that, understandings about treating other beings, life forms, systems with reverence and respect, just as you yourself would want to be treated. And when you do that, you don't do harm to atoms, you don't do harm to animals, you don't contaminate the hell out of a planet and bury your garbage everywhere until your planet's going to be lopsided just from the garbage piles on it. You certainly don't build one of these. Yeah. There's a difference in consciousness. The saddest thing about all of this is the people who are a part of the consciousness fields that are the fallen ones, they are as committed to their family connections as those who are Christic, and they believe they are right, and we are just a nuisance. We're the old way. They're the new way, the fresh blood. They're going to conquer the universe. They're going to show, even though it's been billions of years, and they've been trying, and this is the farthest they got, they figured, well, that's good. See, we got Earth. We got that system. We're even going to take out the Eka. I have a feeling it's going to be one of those, we warned you. I don't think you want to watch what's going to happen. when those temple gates open. And when I point it in your direction. The thing is, we're not going to point them in their direction. There's something that's going to happen that has to do with all of this. That is, the pulse is coming through at 6. I don't know if we're going to feel it when it comes through, but the energies we began to open in ourselves are so we can run some of that buffer field that is going to come from the temples that our guys are opening, the hub temples, to counteract it. What is happening is right now we've got this interesting situation. We got our arcs all messed up. We got the daisy of death controlling the arcs. So the arcs actually force the Merkaba spiral out like this, where it just is forced open. It can't phase up and down. You see, naturally, when you breathe your arcs up, the ends of the spirals of the Merkaba have little receivers on them, and they're supposed to electromagnetically pull up with them. They stay at about a 15-degree difference until they get to the top where they all come together. Where if your Merkaba or your arcs are at 45 degrees, your Merkaba ends will be at 60. If you move with the inhale, 1/3 inhale, you move your arcs up to 30 degrees, and that's when those light balls that the arcs are moving go into what's called a triveka fold, which means 3 of them kind of fold together and they begin to interact and generate current. At that point, you have your arcs at 30 degrees, and you would have your Merkaba ends going up to 45 degrees. So the Merkaba spiral, it's a vortex, is folding up, right? It's meant to go with the arcs, but it goes 15 degrees behind it. And it changes shape when you fly, especially. Like, that's how we end up. We won't have the diagrams for these in this particular workshop, but we're going in there when we get more into the Merkaba, where you end up with, yes, it's a D12 Merkaba. It's technically a 12-pointed Merkaba in structure, but it's a 10-pointed star. Huh? It has to do with how the spirals fold when they fly, and whether you're looking at it when it's just in circulation phase or if you're looking at it when it's in fly phase, because they change shape where the angles, because they're vortices, bend. And the vortices, some of them move through each other, and so there's a whole bunch of diagrams that will come when we get into that level of the Merkaba training. But anyway, the planet has a Merkaba. It's supposed to be able to breathe. As the Merkaba breathes, as the arcs breathe, it brings more energy down the central vertical column, and that allows more energy to spread out through the shields into manifestation. So it continually feeds life force into and ships life force out of, spent life force, out of the system, its natural breathing system. This does not allow that to occur. These arcs are, it's actually the things we saw on the solar system disk, where you saw those big crossover lines that were connected to little planets and moons and stuff up there. These triangulate for our planet through the moon and create a set of vortices that create enough frequency to override these. That's what allows the squash, the push down. They do it from the core, where it's actually like making a tube torus in here that pulls stuff tight in itself. It's almost as if somebody pulled your belly button in too tight, and you kind of caved in the middle and compacted because somebody's pulling it too tight. That's kind of what's happened to the Cathara grid on the planet. And there's still the imprint. There's part. These natural Cathara centers were actually split in half, and part of them were drawn in. But the other part of them still hold the structure, because if they got rid of that, they would have imploded the whole planet. So they've learned by splicing and taking a part of what it is they're trying to take over, they can hold its form integrity until they can harness the whole thing, reverse the whole thing, and take it down their black hole. And that's how they feed their black hole system. So we've got, instead of the Cathara grid being from here to here like it normally would be, the baseline on the bottom becomes here, and the top line has come down to here. So it's much, it's not as deep or long this way. It also compacts here because of what the arcs are doing. The arcs are forced to 60 degrees, where they're supposed to be at 45. Remember, it's the Merkaba ends that are supposed to be on a natural one at 60 degrees. The natural arcs are at 45, and they phase up from 45. All right, from 45 degrees from 0 point top, they phase up and down. Only once in a while are they supposed to go down, touch the rod, pick up an extra charge, and come back up again. That has to do with later rashareisha training when we start to do fly. Right? But they're not supposed to stay stuck down. And what happens now, what we have now, is that they are stuck down into a phase lock. They are forced into the same spin. But these are the dimensional level ones. We still have our density one that is capable of overriding and turning that over. And that's what we've been using. That's the Merkaba. We've been progressively getting back to its natural spin state before it completely reverses. That's why we can even still carry the frequencies to even think about this stuff, where we're not under complete mind control, not going, "Hi, Archangel Michael, I love you." You know what I mean? I mean, talk about groupie weird stuff. The guys that are pointing fingers at us out in the New Age movement, do you ever spend any time with any of these people? Some of them are scary. The trance dancers, I like to call them. They're really out. I mean, they're like body snatch. They're timeshares, a lot of them. And it's really sad. I remember seeing one. That must be the new people. They probably never heard the timeshare concept from this angle. Right? I feel bad for these guys, whoever they started out as, because they're like a revolving door, and you can see it in the eyes. It's like those spinning things, you know, where the eyes just ring, ring, ring. Hello, who are you? Hello, who are you? You know? And it's sad. This is because they've been channeling stuff. They've been opening their hearts. What does it mean when you give yourself the suggestion to open your heart? Here's my astral heart chakra field. Go ahead, do whatever you want with it. I open my heart indiscriminately. I love unconditionally. Means I draw no boundaries whatsoever, so anything in the universe that wants to impale itself into my fields is welcome. That's what happened in the New Age movement. That's why there's a lot of really wacky, airheaded stuff, no matter how much logic you put onto it, no matter how many sound waves you talk about, and how many little dances you do, and how many Native American tribes you've managed to put under your wing and tout how wonderful they are. Yes, they are wonderful. Don't you think they know that already? I think they do. It doesn't matter. If you're still doing antichristic Merkaba mechanics, you're still doing antichristic Merkaba mechanics. If you're still hailing angels and saying, "I'm so powerless down here. Oh, please help me, Angel Gabriel, Archangel Michael, all these angels, anybody up there, lottery angels, anybody?" Right? If you're still giving your power away to an outside source and still not recognizing that you have a direct inner personal connection to God, if you're still going to confession on Sundays, who the hell appointed the priest anyway? Do you really want to know? It's in the records. Go back to the Council of Nicaea, 325 AD, I believe. That wasn't even that long ago. I won't go there, not in this workshop. However, that's already been there, gone there, done that. It's in some book or another. This is one of the things why most people tend to hate me, and that's all right. Most people associated with heavy dogmas get upset with me. Let's put it that way. They don't hate me, but, well, some of them do, actually. But it's not that I'm anti-Christian or anti-Muslim or anti-Hindu or anti-anything but lies and people groveling when they're supposed to be having respect for themselves and for each other and loving the planet and loving each other. And they're begging books written sometime in the ancient past, hoping and praying that's going to help them because they feel miserable. Why? Because they feel powerless. Why do they feel powerless? Because they're giving their power away to dogmas. Why else? Oy! It's a vicious, vicious cycle. And if there's anything, if people want to get mad at me, even if I get assassinated someday because I speak out about giving your power, I don't care if you're giving it to New Age angels, channels, ETs, spaceships, whatever, or if you're giving it to traditional dogmas. I was raised with traditional dogmas, too. Hell, it was a holy war in the family. I had a Catholic father and a Protestant mother, and boy, the Catholic side was not happy about the Protestant mother side. No, and vice versa, either. You know? And I was baptized Methodist in all of that, somehow. Right? Went to Mass, went to services, all sorts of things. And I said, what is this? You know? No. You know, fortunately, I was only in the astral field. You know. The walkout had to deal with most of that, bless her. She used to draw pictures while sitting in pews, just little notebooks of stuff like this. Anyway, I'm not trying to assault religion. I'm not anti-religion. In fact, I am so pro-real religion, and I am so pro-source, and I am so pro-people that I love people and I love source. I love this planet and I love the universe, and I love the fact that this knowledge is finally being brought back to us because we've been running around like mice with blindfolds on since Atlantis. And yes, I will speak with enthusiasm, not anger, but passion about this. It's about time people looked at what they're giving their ideas to. Are you buying into the bullshit from science? Some of it's great. Some of it's true. Some of it's absolute bullshit. Sorry, it is. You know what? God's not going to get pissed at me if I say, I don't have to go to confession on Sunday and say, I'm sorry, I'll say 3 Hail Marys because I said bullshit on stage. No, I didn't. Could, though. No, actually, why bother? Family's family. Never mind. Anyway, back to the issue that's before us. And it's going to be next year by the time we get through these graphs. All right. Anyway, what I want to show you here, most importantly, this is showing the mutation. It's showing you have to make sure I say it right, the daisy of death. It's showing the tree of artificial life that goes with the daisy of death. Now, when you think about anybody that's teaching, I don't care if it's a new system or an old system, that's teaching Cathara grids with 10 points on them. I don't care if they call them trees of lives or things that begin with Ks and balas and things. I don't care how ancient it is. I don't care if it came before the Bible records. I don't care if it's in the Torah. I don't care if it's in the Atlantean records that are still buried somewhere over in Saudi Arabia. I don't really care. Right? I get wound up when I'm tired. Sorry. This is the death machine. This is the mutation we're trying to overcome. And it's here because of a nasty history that we're not allowed to remember, because those few who do know have made sure nobody's allowed to have that knowledge. Do you know how many incarnations I've had to waste getting burned at the stake or hung or drowned just because I knew certain things that you weren't allowed to know? I was stupid enough to talk about it. Some things never change. I do remember a number of very nasty departures and thinking, oh, just learn to keep my mouth shut. But I'm not this time either. It's a grand hurrah, might as well go for it. So we have, this goes back to televisions, by the way. Right here are the magnetic fields that science says is our magnetosphere out there. And, there's like levels of it that come in, toward the Earth. The Earth is buried in there someplace. We have our staff tilted to the 23.5 degree thing. We have this other wacky thing. We have the natural solar north, which would be here. We have our geographical north right now, where our pole is tilting. Then we have this other wacky thing that kind of moves around at 11.5 in counter to the axis. This gives us magnetic north. All right? That is caused by two things. You have two different fields happening here. Why? The natural, remember the Yan-Yun spirals that spiraled electromagnetic frequency, but together in a coherent form. That is because we have a structure called a crystal body. One part of it runs magnetics, one part of it runs electricals. And it's supposed to be aligned and run everything on the vertical axis, and that gives us that really lovely crystal body with all its active vortices that creates what's called the chariot of fire, which is that thing that can go all the way up to the Eka and take you, into starburst and back again and still be in one piece. Now, this field is actually the distraction. It's the harness of the part of the planetary axis. It is holding the magnetic fields, but there's this other field that is another poison apple. It's running electricals. This is the one running electricals, that's tilted on the 23.5 degree axis. It's the magnetic one that's tilted to the 11.5 degree. So you have these fields here and these fields here. What these create is a tube torus vortice in the center of the planet. And this creates a circulation of energy that allows the planet and the seed atom to keep spinning, even though its life source connections have been cut off, because its top and bottom spirals have been knocked out of alignment with the natural solar arcs, and its rod has been confined so it can't receive the frequencies that spiral out from the solar wind anymore in a natural way. There had to be some way to keep it moving. You have to feed its seed atom, but it had quite a bit of energy left in the seed atom, so it had a lifespan. When you see the next diagram, it's quite fascinating. This one took a while. Can you see the next one, please? At this point, I was very tired of drawing these. And I'm sure my beloved was even more tired of typesetting them. Okay, let's go over here first, please. Can you move it this way? And just down a little bit, please. We'll look at that in a minute. This is what I wanted you to see. Now, this is the first time I've been able to finally get it. I knew it was there, but I couldn't quite plug in what angles, between the Cathara grids, the Merkaba fields, and everything. This used to be the Yan-Yun flow. It became the Yin-Yang flow. The Yin-Yang flow, notice, there's one that goes that way, and another one that goes that way. I always wanted to like that shape. There's something lovely about the whole concept of perfect balance and polarity in the male and the female, and it just had such a lovely thought connotation. But I could never quite go there. I remember there was a really pretty rug I liked once. I loved the rug, right? And then it just happened to have one of these things in the center. I just couldn't do it. There was a field thing going, I said, but I don't mind that shape. Yes, you do. My fields were saying, yes, you do. It wasn't the beloveds. It was part of me was going, ugh, there's something wrong with that. Right? Now I know. And it's literally what generates these. There's a lot of words here, so you couldn't really do the whole thing. But what you saw was a poison apple before is generated through that. So you have the currents coming out, forming the magnetic field. You also have a set of them coming in and forming a circulation. There's an electrical set and a magnetic set, and they actually run through each other. It's like a double yin-yang, double yin-yang. And what it does is hold into place this mess. Look at these trumpets. Did you ever read Revelations? Well, we've got trumpets too. Not just the angels have trumpets. Earth's got trumpets. These vortices, these massive things, this is just our North Pole. We got a set down here that wouldn't fit on the diagram. And I imagine there's some really weird, twisted, yucky things at the poles as well, the equatorial poles as well. But these come off those, first you have your 23.5 degree axis, right? You have your natural north here. Well, it should be your natural north. And you have the 11.5 degree counter tilt to the 23.5. Now, this 23.5 degree one does a big arc over 26,000 years, and that's what gives you the precession of the equinoxes. You got this other one that does a smaller cycle, and this one gives you the fluctuation in the magnetic north actually moves. In fact, I think every day it moves a little bit. It wobbles, and there's wobbles within wobbles because of this. Somewhere in here is the poor solar rod, the original rod of this planet that was meant to pick up the solar arcs and angles, the staff. And down here is the rod, but the rod is tilted now. Worse than tilted, it's actually split, where one piece of it still runs the natural Cathara grid, and good thing, because we wouldn't have been able to anchor the density healing of any of this, and we wouldn't have been able, it would have been hopeless. There wouldn't have been a Cathara program. There wouldn't have been anything you could do if the whole rod had been gone. But they didn't. They took portions of each of the things, of each of the grids, and put them into a different configuration. So this yin-yang flow is part of the larger magnetic fields and the larger stuff you saw going off in the solar system. And it's generated through this, which is called the gravitron vortex system. This has been on for a very long time at different speed capacities. It holds the 23.5 degree axis misalignment into certain triangulations between some of the planets in the solar system. Jupiter's one of them. It links through the moon and then into, there's a triangulation between Jupiter and, I forget, there's a very specific geomancy, and it takes the form, really, if you looked at the solar system, look where the planets were positioned, its start spin position of the mess was what looks like a six-sided crystal, just shape. What do they call those? Hexagram? The six-sided ones? Yeah, they're like little short, stubby-looking crystals as opposed to longer crystals that might be built on a Cathara grid. Right? All right. That is the basic shape that anchors in the solar shields. with the planets and things. And recently, I forget when it was. I think it was when we were in Ireland at one time that we were up until this time. Then when they had that activation, and we almost got the 2 moons. Yeah, there is. By the way, there is a thing in the prophecy of the night of the 2 moons that came from our guys. If we get to a point where we see a consistent effect of what would look like a bit more than a moon halo, like literally it looks like 2 moons. We've seen little blends and then they go away again, but that is a definite confirmation of evac, by the way. That means there's going to be major rocking and rolling or something, or red pulse, which does vaporization of everything in its path, that kind of thing. So if you do get an experience of 2 moons, and not just a little bit, yeah, and that kind of went away, but it's like, look at this, oh gosh, go inside, go have a hamburger or something, come back and, uh-oh, I'm still seeing this. It might be personal at first, but it's telling you something. It's telling you what path you're on, and it's telling you that that it is going to go that way. And eventually there would be confirmation with a number of people within the group if we were going to get that, I think, unless it was like really like, you got 3 days starting 2 days ago, if it ever goes that bad, you know what I mean? Whoops. I don't think it's going to go that bad. But what is happening now, and this is what I wanted to get you to. The other stuff I'll go through as quickly as I can because we can't be here past 8 o'clock. We're going to go out to breakfast together. What time is it? Oh, okay. Okay, thank you so much. I won't say sorry, but I will say thank you. Okay? Right. All right. Gravitron. Now, I didn't write them down on this. I forgot it. See, the factoids are what take forever and ever. I have some place, and it was scribbled in pencil on a little, funny-looking thing that I had meant to integrate on this diagram. I have actually the spin speeds. One of them, I forget which end is which, but one has the outside one on the top is a 34. I think it's a 34 counterclockwise on top. It's the same twist as a Merkabah's. It runs the same numbers, the 33 counterclockwise electrical and the 21 magnetic. And but they're not just one or the other. You have them half and half, where whichever the outside one is on the top is the opposite on the bottom. So I have that someplace. I just didn't have time to plug in that factoid. It doesn't really matter. You get the idea. It goes with the twisted mutations of the Merkabah field and all the rest of it. Now this stuff has been on kind of like idle, not shut off, but on slow-mo for a long time. And there are various stages in the drama that we've gone through since the Atlantean period and before the Atlantean period that showed why there's been long periods of stasis. There was one point where, I think it was 13,400 BC, where it went into like the Great Dark Night because they stopped the spin of the top Merkabah spiral completely, the whole density spiral, to stop it being consumed by the wormholes. That's when the planet went into a co-resonant base pulse rhythm with what was left of the spin of its bottom spiral, which was, I think, 7 and 7/9, I think was the number. Yeah, and it turns out to be like 7.8-ish hertz is what it is. And there are scientists that are confirming that, the core pulse or whatever they call it of Earth is that. The Schumann resonance, I think they call it, yeah. Yeah, so that is all connected to it. There's something here, too, with the Van Allen radiation belts. They're somewhere up there in the atmosphere. I don't know much about them, but they're connected to the electrical part of this. This is the electrostatic net. That is the Shona net, the Shona field net, that runs reverse what are called calorines, Calforce light units, that are reverse light units. They are built on the Metatronic code. It is, it makes it, it's as if, it's like a scramble machine. Actually, you know how you can scramble radio and TV signals, and you only get the TV signal if you buy the box and pay for the subscription kind of thing? Well, it's like that. Right now, most of the channels, or people that call themselves channels on this planet, aren't even talking to beings. They're talking to pre-recorded personas that are put in crystallized holographic form with visuals and all sorts of stories and everything in these fields here. Because these fields have harnessed a part of the electrical crystal body. And the crystal body has something called a teliosphere, which is like a crystalline memory matrix, storage, and it's, storage cell. And right now, this is going to be activating more and more. Because what's happening is the activation of this is what pushed, what level that pushed us into? That pushed us into past notice, alert. We went to alert on that one, didn't we? When the Belize thing? Yeah, and then alert, and then standby in India. Yeah, okay. We went into evac alert when they successfully managed, the Budharas and the UIR together, successfully managed to begin the activation cycle on the gravitron through the temple systems that are over. The main one was in Belize, and there's a couple other ones. They're scattered through, like Mayan and, what's the other one? Aztec, primarily, yeah. And there's a couple of tribal groups that are very, very good at anchoring this stuff, too, and they're guardians of it. And these things have been being activated. They are centered in that area, but they control grids across the entire planet. Now, the part of this is going to be complicated, a little bit complicated for me to explain, particularly there was no time to do these graphs because the graphs themselves were complicated, all about lining up angles and like whiting out this part and turning it to this degree and seeing what things line up with. There's another set of those, and they take effect. Sometimes they don't want to be with us. They're very happy to take the Earth or whatever part of the Earth they can take with them and go happily into quarantine in their own black hole system, but they have definitely asked for help to not be absorbed by the Budhara matrix, which is fine with the guardian races. The Hathars, which are a fallen race, but closest to Christic as you can get. They've evolved a lot since Egypt. They were particularly nice in Egypt. But they are willing to set up the final host matrix there. It's a black hole host matrix. It's like the Adonai matrix on the other side in the parallel Eka, where, no, you're not going to ascend, but you still can live the rest of your existence out in a good way. And you can have integrity and learn self-respect again and learn how to live in a community that's built on peace and Christic principles, so you might have a nice experience in life, that kind of thing. So they are going to do that. This is really upsetting the Budhara groups. The Budhara have a plan. They always have a plan, usually ingenious. The first step in their plan, and this is what the first pulse to do this is going to be released this morning between 6 and 7. They said, well, it's going to intercept with our solar fields and be blasted to Earth in that time frame. All right, now I don't know if this is something we're going to see as a solar anomaly in the people who keep track of solar storms and stuff. I don't know. They didn't tell me yet. But I know the pulse is coming. What the pulse is the beginning of is something that has to be done by December of 2006. Because right now, our whole universal Veka system is actually rotating within its Eka, which is natural. It started that in May 2003 when we entered Hitharo. We are going through what's called a Rushite reset cycle and now a starburst cycle, which implies that we will rotate on our Eka hub, which is the outer hub, okay, and into 0-point alignment, or back to a natural point of alignment where our time cycle will restart. That's what they meant about the end of times in the Bible and that kind of stuff. Well, because we're moving into this natural rotation, but we're at a particular point in the rotation, in December of 2006, there's a particular alignment that will occur that will allow, if this is tilted past north and back over the other way and angled this way instead of that way, it will interface directly across the Ark of the Covenant gates and across a place called Telos. Now, Telos is a fallen place. It is part of the Eka systems. It's a different place out there in the universe past the Lyra systems. But it used to be a part of Eka Stargate 1, Universal Stargate 1. And that was also named Brennaway. So there's a place on Earth that was called Brennaway, named after Stargate 1 Brennaway. And during the fall of Brennaway period on our Earth, it also involved larger wars that took place. And a part of this particular system was literally cut off the grids, and it went into partial black hole status, yet it was still being held into like a host, hoping to be able to reintegrate it by the Eka. This place became called Telos, T-E-L-O-S. And it's been a great hub for the New Age movement, to tell you that. We got all sorts of beings communicating and channeling from there. They'll even take you on tours sometimes. Be careful where you go. You never know who the bus driver is. Well, right now, and it has been for quite a while, actually, it's controlled by a group called the Wispers. They're the ones that have a black hole in the parallel, what's normally the PKA parallel universe. Because we're rotating in our Eka hub, and so is the parallel, we have passed through each other, and right now, if you can imagine our Eka, with the four the 4 quadrants. And we're normally the bottom one. Well, we've rotated up now, and we're in the place where the parallel one was, and it has rotated down, and it's now where the PCM was. So technically, we are in the frequency time bands of the parallel universe. Gee, missed that, didn't we? How do we get here? It's a natural part of the rotation of the ECA that the systems pass in and out of each other at certain points in a time cycle. And other points in time, it's stationary, where it's not rotating quickly. We're going through a reset cycle because of the damage that not just to Earth star grids, but to the whole universal complex in this system. So the whole system is rotating. Now, that rotation is going to bring us into a very dangerous alignment. The Budharas know this. The Budharas have a wormhole interface that is on the PCM side, the original PCM side. See, our quadrants rotate, but the orientation of the universes stay the same. And black holes that fall stay where they are. They don't rotate because they're off the grids. So they're just like holes, like potholes, kind of like potholes in the traveling of the ECA. And the Wispers, who are the ones who made the deals with the Budhara from the other side, have, in the PCM side, they have their wormhole set up, and their black hole. And there's a wormhole between their black hole and the black hole on the Budhara side. Now, this has been already and successfully linked between the Budhara wormholes on the California coast through the parallel Earth, which is now down on the Particum side, but it's in Phantom, or no, it's in WISA. It fell. It didn't even make the rotation. That's another story. Anyway, we talked about that before, so I won't go there. But anyway, we are, what the Budharas are going to do, and there's really nothing that we can do to stop them from doing it. All right, the Guardians can't really do anything that wouldn't incinerate everything instantly. So it's more of protect who we can and who's going to be moving out. I don't know. They haven't told me, and they're still not telling me yet, what's it going to look like. But this is the worst news we've got, the fact that they're going to rotate this over this way. Now, this is on the Cathara grid, right, the planetary Cathara grid. Right now, you have your normal north, what's supposed to be normal north there, your solar north. This is over here. They're going to shift this thing. Now, this is connected to that electrical net, right? They're going to shift it over here because they need to actually put it in the opposite alignment. I still do not know what this is going to do, and they haven't told me, and there's probably technicals involved, and that's probably why they haven't told me. It's not as bad as you could imagine it might be, but it's not as good as you might hope, is the feeling I'm getting. All right? But something's got to give if they're moving this way. Now, how they're going to move that is by a pulse beam, and that's what begins with whatever they're throwing this morning. I have a feeling we're going to see it on the sun first, as far as watch what comes out as far as solar activity and that kind of stuff. There was there's a whole set of things around June 12th that had to do with the attacks that happened on Terra that were anchored down in to begin the rod reversal here. And they came out, I think it was a gamma ray burst out there someplace in the universe that ended up coming out our sun, and they couldn't figure out why it got there so fast. And then it was released toward Earth, and right after that there was an earthquake. And I think that was somewhere in South America, somewhere in that vicinity. They told us that it was a bigger one than that. Yeah, it was. I think they might have been after. It was on June 12th. All the three of the events hit on the same, in the same 24-hour period. And this was right after we crawled back from Morocco, and we're in our week of recovery, trying to, what was that? Oh my God, I feel like I would, chewed up and spit out, because that was rough. I mean, it was really physically, energetically rough. Not because Morocco itself, as far as climate or anything, was bad. It was quite pleasant. Food wasn't bad either. I think the water might have got us, but the frequency was really rough. But at that point, the beloveds started to ask us to start collecting data on earthquakes, solar activity, that kind of stuff, because they said that was directly connected to grid events that were happening. There are cycles of just feeling really, really physically awful where you could tell somebody was pulsing something and it wasn't friendly. And they don't bore us to death with the details on stuff we don't need to know about. If it's a big one coming in that we need to do something about, they will tell us. Before it was, well, hopefully we can, protect the planet. At this point, we got to protect ourselves first. And that's why they gave us the technologies. We've begun the process of opening the hub, but naturally in ourselves. To open the hubs in ourselves, if we just open them right up, we'd go back as space dust right now too. So that's why there's certain ways to use a pentagram and certain ways not to. Oh, I got to tell you that one. That was really cool about pentagrams. The way